Hello and welcome to the Liner Notes Club podcast. I'm Phil, and today we are joined by Rock and Roll Hall of Fame member John Steele of The Animals. We go right back to the 60s in industrial Newcastle, talking about the formation of the band, the first trips to London, the legendary House of the Rising Sun recording session, and find out whether it was really done in one take. We talk about the trips over to America, what kind of reception the band got over there. John was kind enough to invite me up to his house up in Northumberland, and we sat in his living room surrounded by various bits of memorabilia through the years, tour posters, awards. It was pretty surreal to be amongst all that and hearing those accounts firsthand of that time. So I hope you enjoy the conversation. As always, if you want to get in touch, you can do that at phil@offthefloor.media. But in the meantime, this is my conversation with John Steele of The Animals. Can you just sort of talk us through your formative years, your early days getting into music and the formation of the band, starting with you personally and how that evolved to joining the band?
Well, I started off in my very early teens. I got interested in jazz through my big brother had some stuff that caught my attention, and so for a while I was a jazz fan and took up trumpet. Played trumpet from about 14 years old, and then left school without any qualifications at all. Went to Newcastle College of Art to avoid having to work for a living, which a lot of people did in those days. A lot of people from the 60s bands did that, went to art school. It was a great skive. And that's where I met Eric Burden. And he had a little band going. Again, it was a jazz outfit. He played trombone. Well, he had a trombone. He could play it. And there was a drummer with a snare drum and a hi-hat. That was the full kit. And a banjo player. They didn't like the guy who was playing trumpet in the band. So Eric and me got on really well as soon as we met at art school. So I was invited to join the band called the Pagan Jazzmen. But that lasted about 2 or 3 months. And Eric, like I say, he had a trombone. But he decided he wanted to be a singer because we sang a few things, old songs like Frankie and Johnny and Down by the Riverside, and he discovered he could sing. But it was exactly at the time when rock and roll was taken over from jazz as the sort of youth music, if you like. And Eric said, "I want to sing," and the guy with the drum, this one snare drum and hi-hat, said, "I'm going to try this new instrument. It's an electric bass." And the banjo player said, "I'm going to play guitar." So I said, "Okay, I'll play drums then." I mean, 15 years old, you're just fearless, So that was the first lineup where we dropped the Jazzmen and it just became the Pagans. And then that would have been 56, 57. And then we were doing a gig in a church hall in Baker, a little rough part of Newcastle, called Headland Street. And there was another band on, Frank Headley. These days he would have been called a Jerry Lee Lewis tribute band,
right?
Because he played piano and sang and that. When we shared the bill with him, there was an upright piano in the corner where we were set up. And this kid from Frank Headley's band came over and said, "Can I sit in with you?" He played guitar with that band, but he sat down at the piano. Knocked 7 bells out of it. He was 200 boogie player, and that was the first time I met Alan Price.
Wow.
So that was 1959. And so he joined us, and that became the foundation of what eventually became The Animals in 1963.
What were your reference points in terms of the music that you were listening to? How were you sort of coming across the material that you were soaking up?
I mean, It sounds like an old cliche, but Eric knew a young merchant seaman who brought stuff back from America, that was unheard of here, I can remember distinctly that was the first time I heard Little Billy John Fever,
Right.
the original version of Fever, and some stuff like that. But there was also these black and white movies coming out based on rock and roll. And suddenly rock and roll was, everybody's dance music. Chuck Berry, Fats Domino, Little Richard, Eddie Cochran, and Elvis, of course. I mean, the first single that Elvis brought out was Heartbreak Hotel, the first UK success, Heartbreak Hotel. And that was 1956, and everybody just went, what the hell happened? What is this? And at exactly the same time, a guy called Lonnie Donegan, who played with the Chris Barber Jazz Band, they had a skiffle group. It was sort of splinter group from the Chris Barber Jazz Band. Lonnie Donegan had this sudden, unexpected hit with a song called Rock Island Line. And it was a kind of the combination of Heartbreak Hotel and Rock Island Line that made so many people of our age and generation think, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Get a cheap guitar and learn 3 chords in a band.
So that sort of bridged the gap between the stuff that I'm guessing was fairly otherworldly, really, these sort of exotic sounding records. I mean, nowadays the world's a much smaller place in terms of the material that we can share and stuff, and endless amounts of stuff. But that sort of bridged the gap for you then, did it? Hearing this sort of skiffle adaptation that this is actually doable,
And we discovered that was Bill Haley and the Comets were a big commercial success, I mean, the second single they had was Shake, Rattle and Roll, which was the first single I ever bought. But that later turned out to be a Big Joe Turner, a blues singer from St. Louis, Heartbreak Hotel, I don't know where that came from, but Hound Dog was Big Mama Thornton, Elvis Presley covered that. We discovered all these people who were making it, suddenly it was Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters and all, John Lee Hooker, all of these people that nobody had heard of, really.
So you started working backwards from the rock and roll stuff and getting the like you say, the original.
To find the original material rather than the cover versions and things, which Elvis Presley did a lot of that. We found a lot of influence in people like Howlin' Wolf. That was.
And did you sort of obviously industrial Newcastle? Did you feel some kind of affinity to the blues stuff in terms of the sort of rawness in the industry there?
Yes. Yeah, exactly that. It seemed to me, we didn't realize it at the time, but it was happening all over the country. It was happening in Manchester and Glasgow and Sheffield, and it wasn't until the Beatles in 1962 sort of opened the whole world up that everybody went, whoa, we've been doing this, we've all been listening to the same stuff, and suddenly there's the Rolling Stones and Spencer Davis and, all of these people from all over, mostly industrial, dirty job sort of cities were doing the same kind of music, The fan base that we all managed to build up in our local cities, where we were the hottest band in Newcastle, for instance, that played at the Cover Go. But our fan base was totally male, and it was the same everywhere. It wasn't until the Beatles and when we first went to America, we were mobbed by teenage girls.
Right.
We'd never been, what's going on? We're a blokes band.
Yeah, those early days. Were you sort of touring as part of the review with other bands of a similar sort of nature, or was
no? We weren't even touring at all. We were just we were in our own little world of around Tyneside. It wasn't until
well, there's a big appetite for it locally.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
It was a great club. Mike Jeffries, he was a student in Newcastle University, but he was from Bromley originally, I think. But he opened a jazz club, and then the first coffee bar in Newcastle. And then he opened this big club called the Club of Go-Go, which had two rooms. One was called the Jazz Lounge, and one was called the Young Set, the Young Set room. That's where kids played, listened to pop music,
Okay.
and the jazz room was where the real proper musicians played. But it quickly changed, and we'd had a little breakup somewhere along the line. I took a job as an technical art illustrator at De Havilland Aircraft in Hatfield after when I left college, and the band kind of fell apart. I didn't stay away long, but when I came back, Alan had reformed the band, and it was called the Alan Price Rhythm and Blues Combo. What a name. We knew that there was another band called the Contours, which was a good quality sort of, proper band. And Chaz played bass for them. But he got poached by Alan. So when I got back to Newcastle, I got a job playing in a nightclub, bow tie, brushes. And I was doing that. I was earning 15 quid a week doing that for a living, which was at that time was pretty good. So I wasn't really aware of what was going on outside of that until I bumped into Chaz on Northumberland Street in Newcastle. He says, "Johnny, just a man. We've got a drummer that's getting on everybody's nerves. Why don't you come and join us? Because there's Eric, there's Alan, there's me, and we knew each other. And I said, Charles, I've got a proper thing. I'm working I'm giving 15 quid a week at this nightclub, playing supper jazz, He said, we are making that much. I said, what? What? He said, yeah, we've got all these nights at the Club of Go-Go, plus the late night, the all night, midnight to 3 a.m. down at the Downbeat Club. So we've got plenty of work. And I said, okay, I'm in. So I said, I had a holiday booked in Belgium. I said, I'm going on holiday, but I'm only going away for a week. And so I got back from the holiday, went to the Downbeat at midnight with my kid, before midnight. Mm-hmm. Got set up, was introduced to the new kid who was playing guitar with us, called Hilton Valentine. Until then, I'd been a tenor sax player. But anyway, this tenor player had gone off to be a student at Oxford University, and to replace him, Hilton Valentine came into the band. So it was his first night with the band, and it was my first night. We didn't have a single rehearsal. We'd just go on stage and start playing. We all knew the same songs and knew the same numbers, mm-hmm. It's just a matter of...
I don't know what sort of material were you doing then when you were obviously playing sort of, what you say, 3 hours a night or whatever? You a fair bit of material to cover.
There was the obvious rock stuff from Little Richard and Chuck Berry and all the rest of that. Eric had found a fantastic album called The Boss of the Blues, Joe Turner, which had Pete Johnson on piano and songs like Roll and Pete and Every Day I Have Blues. Mm-hmm. We did that probably the whole album.
Yeah.
And I was amazed that first night how they'd built up such a crowd. The place was rammed, Oh, bloody hell. I've been sitting in a restaurant playing, then flying me to the moon.
Yeah. So what did the movement beyond Newcastle and Tyneside look like from those early days?
Well, the big movement was the Go-Go, where we became the house band. Mm-hmm. There, really, in what had been called the Jazz Lounge. We took over and we were on there for 5 nights a week, and we were back in different, Mike Jeffries, the manager, mm-hmm. Was bringing in people. We're back to Johnny Hoover there, and back to Sonny Boy Williams, and And just one night, one of the guest band was Graham Bond organisation.
Right.
So you got Graham Bond on Hammond organ, Jack Bruce on bass, Ginger Baker on drums, Dick Hexel-Smith on tenor, and we were just doing the sort of intro and the extra, you know. But when we did our spot before they went on, Graham must have been giving us close attention, because when they finished their set, we came on to do the close the night. He said, "Can I sit in with you?" So I was pleased. So it was a great, it was a great band. We he started talking to Mike Jeffries, who suddenly realized that, you know, by this time the Beatles were showing, you know, opening doors all over the world, you know, and Mike's throat went, just sign here, please.
Yeah.
And Graham organized a visit for Mike to go to London, meet some people. And, you know, suddenly we were being managed by Mike Jeffries.
Right.
And he came back and he said, right, we've got a deal. This was just towards the end of '63, coming up towards the Christmas season. And he says, Giorgio Gomolski, I met him, he manages a band called the Yardbirds, and they're going to be big. So they're going to come up and do your gigs. You're going to go down there and do their gigs. And there's also a guy called Ronan O'Reilly, who has the Scene Club just off Great Windmill Street. He was the guy who founded Radio Caroline, the first pirate radio station. You know? So he had a lot of connections. He was from a rich Irish family, so yeah. And all of a sudden we were in London, in the West End, playing all these gigs and doing the Ricky Tick and the, you know, the marquee. And,
so that was an exercise in just sort of broadening band's fan base, was it? Just north to south, south to north.
Exactly.
Just expanding.
It was only a couple of weeks, but it was enough to convince us that you know, there's more in the world than Newcastle. So and Mike just, you know, he saw the potential, you know, like I say, the Beatles showed everybody the way. So next thing you knew, we did our bits over the Christmas season and the New Year, to a go-roll, all jumped in the van and drove down to London. And that was the other thing by then. When Mike came back from London and said, we're going to do this deal with the he says, by the way, Graham came up with a great name, The Animals. So that's what you're going to be called.
You were told.
Yeah, we were told. Because he said, the Alan Price rhythm and blues combo just doesn't run off.
No, it's a bit of a mouthful.
So, and we thought, The Animals, that's great. Everybody was said, except Alan. he wasn't too keen on that, but he was.
So, had you recorded anything by this point, or was this sort of happening really, really quickly?
The only thing we recorded was live back in Sonny Boy Williamson on the set he played at the Go-Go.
Right,
which
so
is
a rough sort of bootleg thing.
Very rough.
Yeah.
It's still around. You can find it online. There's a version of Sea Jam Blues, which was it was Sonny Boy Williamson was a harmonica player, the blues singer, but he punched me off the drums and played Sea Jam Blues, the jam, you know, and that's on the track, and it's like somebody falling downstairs.
So how quickly did an album follow? How
Very
quick?
quickly.
Yeah.
Very quickly. I mean, we got down there, as I say, we started immediately doing the same sort of circuit that the Stones were doing. The Stones already had a single out. We saw the Stones for the first time just before we left Newcastle. They came. There were two of us, the Everly Brothers, Bo Diddley, and the Rolling Stones,
Wow.
who nobody had heard of before. And it was their first single. We were big Bo Diddley fans. And everybody liked the Everly Brothers, but they were the stars of the show. But we had to get back to the club, so we'd all booked ourselves seats, particularly to see Bo Diddley. And just before the Everly Brothers came on, we left, and everybody went because everybody told me that, you know.
Yeah, well, your places to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't intended to be a snub, but it was just the way it looked.
So that early recorded material, I'm guessing it was just sort of stuff that was in your stock repertoire, your favourites that you were well versed in, and you knew back to front.
I mean, Eric, there's a story attached to that. We had to get back to the Club of Go-Go that night, and Brian Jones and a couple of the other Stones came along to the club that night, and Bo Diddley's maracas place. He had a strange band. He played guitar and sang, and he had was either his sister or his cousin called Duchess played bass. But anyway, the maracas player and the bass player from Bo Diddley's outfit, they came along that night as well, you know. It was a great night. We had a lot of fun. But years and years later, Eric wrote a lyric called The Story of Bo Diddley. And he tells the saying, we're playing at the club, and Bo Diddley walks in and says, that's the biggest pile of shit out there. You know, that thing was just complete fabrication, you know. And years later, I was at a function, and some guy was introduced to me as being one of the animals, and this guy says, I was there the night Bo Diddley came into the Club of Go-Go. I said, no, you didn't. He said, hey, I was there. I said, okay. One of those close memories.
So you were purely covers then, was it? Or you were
it was pretty much always covers.
Yeah.
The Animals never really developed a proper, like, making Keith or Lennon McCartney. Never managed to do that successfully. So it was mainly a covers thing. Just some good songs, though.
Yeah.
But the next big event was we were playing in Eel Pie Island, which was one of the clubs on the circuit, the R&B circuit around London at the time. And there was these two straight dudes who were in the audience who were obviously not like the local fan base, and that turns out to be Mickey Most and Peter Grant.
Right.
Peter Grant, who later became Led Zeppelin's manager, or at that time he was a booker for the Don Arden Agency.
Right.
Yeah. The word must have got around, you know, check these guys out. And Mickey was just setting himself up as an independent producer.
Yep.
So next thing you knew, we were in Don Arden's office, and then this was early '64, and we're all sat around like the Mayfair office, big desk on that. And he said, I'm bringing Chuck Berry over to the UK for the first time. I'm going to put on a tour. It's going to be several bands, but I want you to be on that tour. You know. and Mickey was appointed to be our record producer to make our first single. So within 3 months of arriving in London, we were in the studio recording our first single, which was Baby Let Me Take You Home, which got a little tickle in the charts, and it was enough to get us on the radio, and I think we got a really steady go spot with it as well, which is enough to get us known, you know. And of course, the second single was House of the Rising Sun.
How did that one come about?
Well, Mickey, he used to go across to New York, the Brill Building, bring stuff back there, and he brought this song, which was Baby Let Me Take You Home, which to us was suspiciously like Baby Can I Follow You Down from Bob Dylan's first album. You know, we were big Bob Dylan fans, and so we said, well, it was good enough for us. We'll give it a shot. You know, it sounded a bit poppy for us somehow, but I've grown fond of it over the years. It's not a bad song at all. And of course, we nicked House of the Rising Sun off Bob Dylan's first album as well. You know, but that was the second single. All of a sudden, we're got a big manager. He's got us on tour, supporting Chuck Berry, 3 weeks, 2 shows a night. Great nights, sell out everywhere. You know. And Chaz had the idea, because we've been toying with Rising Sun as a number, you know, around getting it into shape. And Chaz said, you know, everybody on the tour. And just Chuck Berry, Carl Perkins, who wrote Blue Suede Shoes. The Nashville Teens, King Size Taylor and the Dominoes, they're a Liverpool band based in Hamburg. They backed Chuck Berry. That was the best backing Chuck Berry ever had, because he had a terrible reputation. No rehearsals. But they actually, they were tight into it. He really, so the tour was brilliant. But jazz was absolutely spot on. You were dead right. When we started playing House of the Rising Sun, you could feel this, there's something special, the audience just went, oh. And so, right in the middle of the tour, we had a session booked, the same studio that we did Please Let Me Take You Home. It's only a one-track studio. Again, it was a basement, a control room, and a toilet. That was it, in Holborn. And so the response to the number was electric, so probably we call it this. So in between, we did Liverpool and drove down to London, into the studio, set up, got a quick sound for balance, and played it one time. And there was no overdubbing, no nothing. It was just a live performance. And Mickey said, "Come and listen to this," So we went in the control room and he said, "That's a hit. That's a hit single." And Dave Siddle, the engineer on the desk, he just said, "Bit of a problem there, Mickey." And I said, "Like what?" He says, "Well, it's 4 minutes, 35 seconds long." He says, "You'll never get it played on a BBC. It's too long." And these are the very words I remember distinctly. Mickey said, "The hell with that. We're in the vinyl age now." Because that limit of 2.5 minutes to stream was a hangover from the old 78 RPM days,
Yeah.
That's as much as you can get on a record, So he went with it, and fortunately we got a slot on Ready Steady Go, because we played there for the first single, and we also did some like Boom Boom and live stuff with them. They loved us on Ready Steady Go, because we could play live and not make fools of ourselves.
Yeah.
So we actually got to play Rising Sun on Ready Steady Go, and it took off in the charts, and it didn't matter about the length because it was in the charts, so the BBC had to play it anyway,
Yeah, it's unbelievable just to think that such an iconic anthem was just a sort of one take and done. And
I've still got the letter I wrote down. We were recording a couple at that point, and I wrote her a letter a couple of days later and said we went into the studio and recorded but we did Rising Sun and we did it in one take, and I still got that letter.
Wow!
Because she kept them all.
Yeah.
So it's not a made-up story.
Well, everybody had a good feeling about that particular song. Like you said, you were sort of gauging the live response, and you thought, this is a goer. So did that instigate the American trip after that? That was sort of
exactly. Yeah. I mean, so it was number one in America, and so next thing you knew, we were jetting off to New York to what used to be like a foreign planet to us in the 50s.
Yeah. Well, like I said, the world now seems like such a small place. But then I guess your only exposure, obviously, you were sort of lapping up the music that was coming in from over there. And I think you got the high-profile musicians of the time, but
you didn't,
you didn't fully know what to expect.
Yeah, but to actually go there and arrive at New York with mobs of teenagers at the airport, because by that time the Beatlemania had really taken off, so just about any group was guaranteed a mob, and it landed. And some PR man at MGL Records had the idea. There was an English sports car called Triumph, and they had a new version that came out called the Triumph Tiger. That's what he went. Triumph Tiger, animals. So we came out. And there was 5 Triumph Tiger cars lined up, and each of us had a 6-foot statuesque model with a mask, a tiger's tail, whiskers, fishnet stockings. And that's the way we drove into Manhattan.
Wow.
With a motorcycle escort.
Well, yeah, I guess you've perhaps seen pictures or heard stories of, like New York and but the sort of scale and it must have just seemed like
it was incredible
together.
I mean, we kept looking back at each other and approaching the New York skyline and the Empire State Building and everything in these cars with these beautiful women. And I thought, this is crazy. That's how we arrived in New York.
Wow. What did the gig look like there? Was it well received? Everybody and mopping it up based on your chart success.
That's right. I mean, chart success was basically just on a one single. Our first gig in the States was the Paramount Theater in Times Square, which was a famous theater for big bands back in the swing days, and Benny Goodman and Frank Sinatra in the Bobby Soxer days. All of those people did the Paramount. So that was our first gig for a week. It was fantastic. They had a stage that rose up, one of those things. And that's where all the big bands appeared, from out of nowhere. Except by the time it was all electric wires and stuff all over the place. They abandoned that idea. Another thing was, it was a very old school kind of way they had of doing things at that time. It was still in the 50s in a way in America, the mindset. So you'd have a movie, it started at 10 o'clock in the morning, it'd be a movie, then it'd be the live show, bands and guests, and then another movie, the same movie, 4 times a day.
Oh, right, wow.
So
right.
You start at 10 o'clock in the morning, you finish at 10 o'clock at night.
So you're doing four shows a day?
4 shows a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Over a week. It was heaven for me because being a jazz fan, I was literally 2 blocks away from Birdland, which was...
So while the film was on, you were off exploring?
I mean, the nightlife didn't really start till 10.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
10 o'clock was, we were, bye-bye. And I was off up into Birdland watching John Coltrane for every night for a week. One of my 8 years. And, so that was a great introduction to the music scene in the States.
I mean, that was best part of 60 years ago. Does it still surprise you that the songs and the band are so well received 60 years on? What do you put the timelessness down to?
I put it down to this quality of the songs. Everybody seems to be able to identify with, we got to get out of this place. Don't let me be misunderstood. It's my life. Don't bring me down. And everybody knows how it's the rising sun. That's the first song I ever learned on my first guitar.
Well, stuff like It's My Life, and it captured that emerging attitude and autonomy and independence.
For the first, I think we were the first generation who broke free from our parents and did what we wanted to do with our lives rather than what they thought we should be doing. And it encapsulates that, and it's still full of attitude and conveys that even now, the other stuff that we've got going on. Yeah, I can remember my dad saying, up to me at one point, it's all very well playing drums, but you should get a proper job. And here I am, 60 odd years later. And I still get a buzz from it. As I said, it's the quality of the songs that does it. I'm the only original animal in this band. The quality of the guys I'm working with, the musicians, it's a good live band. There's still no double tracking of anything for us. It's just in your face live.
Yeah, music, all that energy and attitude is obviously every member's soaked that up. It's part of their fabric. They were brought up on the material that comes across.
I was once telling my daughter about a recurring dream I have, and it's not always the same dream identically, but the theme of it is generally, everybody else seems to know what they're doing except me. you know. They just said, "You've got imposter syndrome." And that's the way I feel about it now.
Wow.
How am I still getting away with this? You know.
Well, yeah, if you haven't shaken it off by now, it's fantastic. It's obviously still resonating with a young audience.
Well, I did a string of interviews last week, 4 in the morning and 4 in the evening for Australia, but for local radio stations and podcasts and things like that. And I did 5 days of those. The enthusiasm that was coming back, was great,
Yeah, and obviously Bruce Springsteen's been pretty vocal in his appreciation for the animals.
That was fantastic.
And obviously with the film coming out over the last year or two, and then his big sort of high profile UK tour. Have you found that shone a light back on you?
Yeah, I thought that was fantastically generous of him. But I mean, he did a major tour a couple of years back, and every night he said, there's 3 songs. Don't let me be misunderstood. We got to get out of this place, and it's my life. And that's all of them. All of the songs I ever wrote are from the, and they were by the Animals. Every night I went, whoa.
Wow. Yeah. He's been pretty vocal in his appreciation and your influence on him and his songwriting and his attitude, because he said himself he was the first band to display that full-blown class consciousness. It went beyond the sort of 2-3 minute pop.
That's right, yeah.
Bubblegum pop throwaway stuff, and it was actually stuff with substance that had a universal, that struck that universal chord.
People could identify with.
Yeah.
And that's where the strength of it is, as far as I'm concerned. And I consider myself to be very lucky to be the drummer in the band. And Danny Hanley, the lead guitar and vocals, is such a good player and a good singer, frontman. And Barney Williams on keyboards, brilliant. I mean, as good as Alan Price ever was.
Yeah, Barney said himself that Alan Price was his sort of first influence, and there he is now playing the parts. It's
what a hell of a player. Yeah, Barney gets to do a couple of songs as well nowadays. He's a good singer as well as a hell of a player. So it's a lively band. And there's enough. We do obviously the big hits, but there's still a good back catalogue of B-sides and album tracks that means we can kind of mix and shuffle them around, so it's not like a cabaret act every night.
There's
a bit of we haven't done this for a while. Let's throw that one in tonight.
Yeah, I think last time I saw you put some of the sort of the early blues, the sort of a couple of Jimmy Reed ones and a bit more of a stripped back acoustic thing for a couple of tracks as well.
That was Danny's idea.
Yeah, as a bit of a nod to that. Yeah, that side of things.
That early influence that was so important to us.
Yeah. But no, I really appreciate you sitting down and hearing all that stuff. It's fantastic. Really, really interesting to listen to. Such formative moments in our culture as we know it. Really, it's crazy.
I think we were a very lucky generation. I think to be where we were when we were really in the right place at the right time. I think the process sense of I'm still getting away with this. Excellent.